Hey folks, it's Will here from the future after the recording of the podcast, which we've just done. Originally, our plan was for this podcast to be live on the Sunday after the league finals. We had a few Wi-Fi issues, so we decided to go with a recording. And then, naturally, when I go to hit record in the software that we use, things have moved around, and there was the possibility that, again, we were about to launch into another podcast without hitting record. So therefore, I've left the natural start of how things went when we got slightly worried about the recording not happened, which goes off into a little bit of a preamble. If you want to skip by that entirely, you're just joining this because you want to hear about why Cork have got incredible hype behind them after winning the National Hurling League for the first time since 1998, and why Tipperary are now going to struggle to get out the Munster Championship in the view of the two guys. Skip forward to about 6 minutes into the video. You get that from the start, which would be the natural way we would start the podcast. But if you want to stick around and see the talk that happens beforehand, maybe you'll enjoy that too. Enjoy the pod.
OTB's The Hurling Pod with James Skehill and Paul Murphy.
That's not a joke, by the way, because you can see the red button is up there now. But I don't like, as we get into this, that it tells me that you need to confirm that you want to save it, as if like, I'm just recording for the crack.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't. No, just bin it before we even record it. Maybe this is in the start.
I still think back and go, the three of us, what Egypts that we let go for 55 minutes, and then realised, what are we doing?
That'll happen you once, and that's it.
Yeah. To be fair, right, that recording that went wrong was entirely my fault, and I realise this is now part of the pod for this week. There's no way I'm going to cut this out, but that was entirely my fault.
A very slow, mellow introduction into the pod this week that we're just randomly talking about being terrified of not recording the pod.
Yeah, but Murph, at the time, right, you and I both knew it was not recording, and we chose to keep quiet until we got to like 60 minutes.
Did you actually know it wasn't?
I knew, I said, something up with this. That red button should be up there in the corner. But I'm not going to say anything because I am 50% wrong. I was in my mind. So, and then Will goes, "Oh shit!" And then straight away.
No, I didn't cop it at all that night. Jesus, what? I was dejected.
Oh, I couldn't believe it.
The word I haven't heard in a while.
Like, for whatever reason, I felt no need to look towards that corner, and I look at it religiously now for a rough guide on the time. And I just, for once, I didn't look over, and it was only about maybe half an hour in or whatever. We got to about 40 minutes, I think, before we realised it. And I kind of went, "Wait a minute, have they moved that over there somewhere?
Yeah.
Where's it gone?"
But I like the way you say I look at it for a rough guide of time, as if we ever stick to time, as if there's ever been we're going to have to tidy this up. Like there was it 2 weeks ago? It was like an hour and 35, an hour and 40.
Yeah,
for the first pod.
Yeah,
like
it brings me on to a question.
Yeah, go on.
Have you have you ever made like a monumental fuck up at work?
Probably, yeah. I can't, like, off the top of my head, I can't think of one, but definitely things have gone wrong. I remember, again, definitely doing an interview a good few years back, which was like a commercial interview, and right as it finished up, it might have been Michel Platini maybe, and it basically, he was over doing a whole UEFA thing, and it was part of the sponsorship. Yeah, talking there to, former Ballon d'Or winner, former European champion, one
currently
of the best players
being investigated for lots of
embezzlement.
Indeed. This was long before him and his buddies got in any kind of trouble. But it finished up, and I realised that as I was hitting stop on the recorder, the card was corrupting. Because sometimes you see when it just doesn't write to the recorder. And you can imagine when you need to turn around after you've sat down with Michel Platini for whatever it was, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and you're like, look, I'm really sorry, but we got to go again from the top here.
Yeah.
That's never good.
Black or blue.
Never good. Other bad ones I can't think of. Look, if I come up with one, we'll stick it into the members pod. But
it's probably also not the form that you want to say it, like onto an open podcast that this time I made an absolute hames myself in work. Yeah. Unless it's completely innocent.
Or like my employers, very good chance they listen to something going out in their own product and they realise you've done something stupid. We definitely had a few recording issues from time to time. Not my fault, by the way. But I remember All-Ireland final week last year, I was hosting and we accidentally saved a file in the wrong name. And it meant that the preview we had done for the All-Ireland final on Tuesday went back out on Wednesday. And you can imagine what the texts were like coming in. It was like, you cheap bastards playing the same piece twice night after night. Yeah. I'm like, you don't realise we had a whole other lovely piece which we recorded just before the show started. And I remember an unmixed podcast went out, which I wasn't involved in, a couple of Christmases ago, which, as you can imagine, was the entire preamble back when everyone was recording it on Zoom. The whole conversation beforehand, which is joking about what they were going to talk about. This is fairly safe. Like, if this goes wrong, I'll just take it out. And also, there was loads of swearing within the podcast itself and also in the preamble before the podcast. Now, that goes out in podcast form. Jim's going to send you a YouTube comment going, my kids are in the car. Why'd you do that? You put it out on national radio, not so good, especially not 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday when people are getting ready for Christmas.
Yeah, like, lads cutting the lawn and stuff, and like, Well, Christmas, sorry. Okay,
it's Christmas, but like, you imagine you're bringing the kids down to Clare Village for the day. What we flick on? I wonder what Off the Ball they're talking about. They're playing some classic interviews. Let's have a listen to, a particularly specialist podcast which is on there, and lads are effing and jeffing and joking about what they're going to talk about, and probably entirely different characters. And it took ages for anyone to notice it because the producer had gone to get a burrito, I think. So he wasn't there. And the sound up was also gone. And you see, the rule of thumb, before we get into this, without giving too much away, one of two people should sit in the control room even when a pre-record is going out in case it goes wrong. Because the only other one I can think of that went really wrong, that wasn't anyone's fault. People might know JP Gilbourne because he's now off with Ray Foley on Today FM. Used to be our producer on OTB. Again, this must have been during COVID, I think, because we were remote while we were recording it. But Nathan, Ger and I recorded a news round on the Friday because we were going into another piece that was also pre-recorded. And for whatever reason, it corrupted. And it was like a Beatles album from the 1960s. If you played it backwards, it had a message going through it. So if you can imagine, the top of the show is meant to be Ger and I talking about something, and Nathan then comes in part 2 to talk about the football that weekend, or the joy of football without crowds. And Nathan was running backwards through the piece, where Ger and I were going forwards and Nathan was going backwards. So there was a Premier League preview going, blub, 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 and it went out for about 20 minutes.
And there's lads thinking they're going mad at home because two of the voices are going the right direction and one is going backwards.
Yeah, it was like, has my radio gone out of sync here? Or is if you're online, is the player corrupted? What the hell is going on? And I was at home, and it's the most messages I think I've ever got about a radio piece while it was going out, because everyone had F all to do during COVID, except for listening to the radio. Wrong piece going out. Or a corrupted piece, at least. So yeah, radio is dangerous and pre-records are dangerous. But here we are, pre-recording the Hurling Pod after the National League finals. Hopefully you enjoyed that unexpected interlude. No stopping the Cork goal machine though, lads. The Rebels Division 1A League champions, first time since 1998. They really blew away Tipperary in the second quarter of the game, across the first half in particular. 43,000 packed in to watch Connolly, Fitzgibbon, Toomey all find the net in the second quarter of the game. 13 goals now in 3 games for Pat Ryan's team. It's their first national title since the All-Ireland 20 years ago as well. Also Tipperary now licking their wounds at this stage. Difficult start to the Munster Championship for them. It'll be Limerick to start in Munster after that 10-point defeat today, while Cork are now getting ready to go back to Clare on Easter bank holiday weekend. And Stephen Bennett, he scored 12 points. There's 12 points for Brian Duignan in the game as well. Waterford enjoyed a 4-point win against Offaly in the Division 1B final, which we'll talk about as well. I don't think 4 points was particularly reflective of the way that game went. Waterford were 14-15 up at one stage during the game. It was really kind of the final quarter that brought Offaly back into it. These finals, Skehill, a little bit disappointing in the end, weren't they? I mean, they weren't the most competitive affair, were they?
No, I thought the occasion was going to be set up for 2 very good boisterous games. Great to see a good crowd in for particularly the second game, but it just kind of it was both sets of winners really were just a class above today. To be fair, they were operating at a level that just their competitors couldn't live with, and it was kind of a similar style in the sense that like both Waterford and Cork had extremely high energy. Their movement was excellent. Their touch was very slick. You know, they were kind of first to every battle. Let's say they were first to the breaks. They were first. Forwards were first out in front. First to get goals. Like they were just very, very forward and forthright and very workmanlike performances from both. And it was at levels whereby when you come up against those kind of teams, it's very, very hard to stop them. Particularly in the second game, whereby Cork they were everywhere. They were being pushed by their probably 30,000 people in their own stadium, and they were coming from all angles. They weren't lethargic. They weren't playing one direction. They were playing multi-direction. They were putting a few things in front of Tipperary, particularly with Shane Barrett on the wing coming very, very deep, causing awful trouble with creating space at the inside line, running very direct in terms of goals. And that's one point to note we spoke about last week in the sense that we knew Cork were going to go for goals, get goals, but then we raised a question about Tipperary having to get goals to live with Cork. It didn't happen. And like it's gas to think that the game started off really well. Going to the second game first. Started really well in the sense that it was like 6-6, 7-7, 8-8. You think, geez, we could be in for a right good game here. Next thing, there's 10 points in it. You're just wondering where did that come out of? And it was the most simplistic, basic type of hurling to get that 10-point gap. It was like a puck out would come from Tipperary, Cork would get hit to ground, win the break, turn and move, inside forward line movement was fantastic, goal. And it's that simple. It was the ability for Corks to win, get the primary ball or secondary ball off a puck out, pick it up, find a space runner, like Shane Barrett or others, right? Then move it into an inside line who are out front, retain the ball, turn, attack, goal. Like that's fundamental, basic, scripted hurling. That seems so simple on the face of it, but to do that and execute it in a high octane game was extremely impressive. And go back then an hour earlier, which with regard to Waterford, very similar way in the way which they stretched out their lead in the first half was they were absolutely dominating the Offaly puck out. Offaly couldn't get a foothold at all, from my reading anyway, in the sense that every puck out they had, Waterford were just congesting the middle between the two 45s. Same thing, get to ground, break, go through a tackle, and into a space runner in the forwards, whereby you feel like they had 40 square yards of space. And it's a very, very difficult proposition for Offaly to take care of, because we've often said it here, marking space or marking the man. You can't do both. So the full backline inside for Offaly under ferocious pressure, but it wasn't of their doing, to be fair. Just they were getting dominated. That's all it was. And when Offaly had their purple patch then in the second half, they flipped the script. They did the same thing, but unfortunately, the gap was too broad. It was just too broad, and like, even though the likes of Digan and Dunbourne came into the game really well, were effective, but the gap was just too far. And look, if you look at both games, you can kind of use a very, very similar assessment. Both teams who won the game dominated the air, dominated the ground, dominated the legs and energy, and then their scoring efficiency was off the charts. So very, very, very well deserved winners. There's no issues there.
Yeah. Cork, obviously a lot made. Murphy, you mentioned the 13 goals now in 3 games, going back to Ennis when they really, really opened up. And again, 3 goals scored today, which were fairly crucial. But how important is it for Cork? Because again, if you're here for this podcast this week to try and dampen the hype on Cork, good luck. That is not going to happen. No goals conceded again. So this is 3 games in a row where they haven't conceded a goal. I saw some people complaining again that they were cynically fouling out the pitch, and you're probably going to get that, and there were pull downs. We talked about that, about the Galway game a couple of weeks ago. The simple fact of the matter is, this Cork team is effective. They stop coughing up goal chances as well. They
do, yeah. And like, the more glaring thing about Cork is that it's goal scoring is how dominant they are. Like, okay, grand, they got their few goals today, but I kept just seeing opportunities where, particularly at the start of the game, a ball mightn't have went to hand, or someone mightn't have rose the ball, and you could see the runners were there, like they were really tempting it there the whole time. Great that they kept a clean sheet, which is, it probably goes back to that thing of defenders winning championships, attackers winning games and all that. But I like I said, I actually have no problem with that. I think myself and Skehill said it there a few weeks ago. I have no problem with the game management side of it, that Cork, when they go ahead by 10 points or 6 points, whatever you want to call it, and they get a sniff that the opposition are going through and goal and there's an overlap. It is cynical fouling, call it what you want, but good teams will do it, because you're basically saying, yeah, I'll take my punishment. You're giving your punishment, be the yellow card, free in, whatever it's going to be, but you're managing the game within the rules, and that's no problem. And that's, we've probably said it previously, where you go back 3 years ago, and that wasn't present in Cork, and it's probably that weakness that we talk about, that I wouldn't even call it honesty. It was maybe just, look, it's been called softness previously. That's not there. That's not there at the moment, And I really just got this sense of feeling, and we'll talk about Tipperary, and we'll talk about Offaly and Waterford and all that. But after the game, when I saw the crowd on the field, and I heard, even during the game, I heard the Cork crowd cheering, the defending, the tackling, the hooks and the blocks, all that stuff. They really appreciated it. Like, I think it was Rob Downey or Owen Downey, not sure which one, got a great tackle there, maybe 10 minutes to go. They had the game won, going back towards his own goal. And again, these are just flickers in my head. Flicked it out. I think O'Leary picked it up, then popped out a pass, and they just killed it. And up the other end, got a point. They won by 10. They were probably 15 or 16 points better. And you could probably say the same then as well about Waterford and Offaly. Granted, Waterford brought it back to about 4, or Offaly brought it back to about 4 points. You're probably talking 5 or 6 minutes to go. And you got a feeling that they could kick on. But then Waterford tagged on 2 points and kind of just brought it back out. To be fair, Waterford were probably the better team by about 9 or 10 points, if you're being honest on the day. But going back to Cork after the game, seeing the crowd on the field, seeing the players, I was even just looking like, Kingston coming in, Declan Dalton coming on, Coleman coming on. I was like, this is like, if ever there was a time the Cork are primed for it. And I know there'll be Cork fans saying, oh, stop, no, we don't want to hear it. I don't think that's a problem for this Cork panel at the moment. I really don't. And I've been one of the lads that think that I've been let down by Cork before when I've predicted that they're going to win. I really don't get that feeling of them at the moment. There's something about them about the way they're going about their business at the moment, that whoever's going to be in front of them this year, it's going to be tough and dangerous. There's a long way to go. We're getting into the serious hurling now, but from everything I've seen from every team so far, Cork just seem in such a really good place at the moment, and like so deserving winners today. They were outstanding.
Yeah, Micheál O'Donnell on TG Carr afterwards, Skehill was talking to Dara Fitzgibbon, and he kind of said that to Dara, who was naturally kind of playing things down and saying, look, we've got a very difficult game coming up against Clare in a few weeks' time, and we need to concentrate now in Munster. And he was saying, well, look, it's not the most significant thing here that you had the vast majority of 43,000 people in Páirc Uí Chaoimh with an expectation that you were going to win, and you won. And previously, people were criticising them last year, Skehill. Remember when there was the crowd invasion after the Limerick win? Mm-hmm. People said, you still have to win the last round game, and this celebration is going to look very silly if you don't back it up. And then Cork did back it up all the way to an All-Ireland final and took an All-Ireland final to extra time. I don't think these players mind dealing with pressure.
I don't. And I was, my mind casted back to the 2021 Ireland final, and I was trying to see is there much of I suppose, how many players in that team currently occupy the team today. So I just picked the team and assessed both teams that today's final, the final 21. So they've Patrick Collins is the goalie, right? They have 4 of their 6 backs still playing today. They have 1 of the midfielders and they don't have 1 of the forwards. So there's been a complete changeover, in personnel in only 3 seasons, not even 4, because I'm not coming to 25 seasons yet. In 3 seasons, you could say they've had, let's say, more than 50% of their team changed over. So this team, for me, doesn't carry any baggage per se, that they've had in the past. We've always questioned Cork about resilience and about toughness and about physicality and about when things get tough, what to do. This team, to me, is absolutely 100% going in the right direction. They are in the right direction. They're occupying the number 1 spot now nationally. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. And I always look at a certain trait of a team or a characteristic, and it's just the way they're defending. I look at the 2 Downies lads. 2 Downies today,
they're mighty.
They're class. The 2 of them are class. What a nucleus to have in your defence where you have your 3 and 6 brothers. Yeah, whether it makes a difference to the pitch, I don't know. But the 2 of them are operating at such a very, very high level that it's fundamental to Cork's success. So I was just picking out Sam Farrell, who I might say was a very bright spot for Tipperary today. He was funneling forward from midfield, and who was the man that turned him over twice? Was that Rob Downey with him? Just in real physical turnovers. And like you said, Murphy, you could feel the crowd appreciate a genuine effort of defending, right? Yes, the scores are fantastic, super, and the crowd appreciate that too. But everyone, supporters will appreciate the hard yards, the hard tackles, the turnovers, you know what I mean? Taking the ball off an opposition when it's hard to do. And Cork they're just about that at the moment. And I really like where they're at. I like the mentality. And when a team goes well in that sense, and they're showing these characteristics, you're looking at, well, who's driving it? Is there a particular amount of players? And there's no one person. Every one of the Cork team, as far as I can see, even Jim Tilly, the youngest player on the pitch today, comes in and contributes 2 or 3 points. You know what I mean? There's just this kind of collective forward thinking as far as I'm concerned. The defence up along. Patrick Collins was really good today again, I thought. Distribution was excellent. Go through all their backs, no fault. No Mark Horgan on the team, mind you. Cormac O'Brien slotted in there, excellent. Midfield, I think Toomey got 1-3, 1-4. Forwards are a nightmare to mark. So when you're looking at, say, who's going to win that Ireland, and you're picking out traits of a team and the positive elements of a team, Cork have it all at the moment. And I'm not trying to talk them up because they're up there already. There's no talking up anymore. They are where they are. Now, do they have a tricky game in 2 weeks? Of course they do. Because they're going to have to try and reach the levels that they've reached in the last 2 games, which has been last 3 games, which has been very high. 13 goals, you said, Will. Now, there's an expectancy that they have to create goals. What if they don't get goals the next day? Just challenges will pose themselves. Other opposition teams have been forewarned as to how dangerous Cork are and how physical they are. And yes, they're a bit cynical, but I love that. I love a team saying, you're not going to score on us today in a goal. And I think that's, yes, they've scored 13 goals, but no one has scored in the last 3 games, Will. Is that right?
No.
So that's a great sign. That's a super sign. Like it was like back in your day, Murphy. If you got in for a goal, you came out hurt. And that's just reality. So you came out hurt. I wasn't saying it's you now, but I'm just saying, I don't mind. You have to earn your goal, or you have to do something special to get a goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love that trait. Yes, I appreciate the score, and I do, right? But at halftime, did you see the reaction of the Cork crowd?
Yeah.
The whole crowd stood up, full round of applause, as if to say, this is where we're at. This is what we're all about to say. This is why we pay money to come here, pack into this ticket, or into the stadium, racing for tickets, is to see this kind of exhibition of complete hurling. Total hurling is a phrase I heard used by someone one time. And that's what it was. Defensive and attacking and attitude. Attitude is fantastic. Yeah. So they're favourites, lads.
Yeah. There's a part there, Skehill, when you were saying about the half time, and it probably ties into what Will was saying as well about an expectation. Like, it's one thing to go out we'll call it 3 weeks ago, let's say, and down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and to put up that score against Tipperary, not in the league final with no expectation, let's say, but there's a different thing that the Cork supporters now expect a performance to the standard of the Cork team. And with that comes a bit of a pressure. And I think with the league final today, it was built up to be potentially, a huge, huge game, very close, very tight. And then that whole thing of it's down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, how will these lads react? Maybe a few years ago, there might have been a little bit of weakness, but there was such a clarity about their play. They were so aggressive. They had such conviction that I think that half-time appreciation by the Cork supporters was very much kind of, there was an expectation on you to perform today, and you've actually performed better than what we expected. You're going in at half-time, was it about 14 points up at half-time, 12 points? Can't remember. Yeah. But it was about that.
12. No, it was 12,
and It was 12. Yeah. And it was a defiant performance. And I think that is something that I haven't seen from this team, where it's like that conviction that we don't really care who's in front of us. We don't care about the expectation. I completely appreciate Dara Fitzgibbon playing it down. That's their job. That's the Cork panel's job. And they will have to do that until this finishes. But for us as outsiders looking in, not in the bubble, you're looking at them going, there's so many boxes you're ticking here that is just All-Ireland winners. Like we said, there's a long way to go. And we could be talking here after Munster Championship saying the wheels came off the bandwagon. That's the way hurling goes and so on. That's what they have to deal with. But until then, until we see anything different, you're just going, these lads are primed. They're ready to rock, and it's great. It's mighty.
Yeah. Skehill Alan Connolly back to form again. That was his first goal since Thurles, tail end of last season in the Munster Championships. Obviously likes scoring goals against Tipperary. He was ill, I think, during the All-Ireland quarter-final last year. Maybe didn't quite recapture the goal-scoring form he had in the league and the Championship last season. But I was quite aside from hitting the net. I was very impressed by his overall performance today. He ran through the lines. He, again, provides that kind of just turn of pace up front as well. He looked back to good form today, didn't he?
Oh, damn right he did. With the thoughts of Brian Hayes being potentially injured, you were saying, right, who's going to step up to the mark to provide that goal threat, that direct goal threat, and you were kind of laying that on Alan Connolly's shoulders. Then Brian Hayes comes out and is fit to play, but Alan Connolly still carries that mantle. Again, extremely important player for that. And I'm very impressed with the way forwards are. And look at this now in future. Look at the game the next day and watch the amount of balls that get delivered into full forward lines, and watch the amount of balls that forwards retain. On average, Will, it's 6 out of 10. If a forward retains 6 out of 10 balls, that's a really good return. And if you make something happen out of, 80% of that, excellent return. A forward's on having an excellent day. The Cork forwards are retaining, literally, maybe I don't have the exact numbers here, guys, but the Cork forwards are retaining 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 easily. I don't think I'm wrong in that sense, because the
quality of ball helps though as well. There were times when they were really on it today. They play a lovely ball. It must be fantastic to play in that inside forward line, because you're expected to stay up and you're getting beautiful ball into you.
You are, but I so as part of another item, right? I looked at the Cork forwards against Galway. There's a high behind camera that they had, and there's a side view camera. So both cameras were married them together to watch the play develop outfield. You can look on the left hand side, which is a side behind camera. And to watch the forwards movement, you look on the right hand side, which is the high behind camera. And to watch the way the forwards move it's beautiful. I have to say, you know what I mean? As a goalkeeper, you'd be saying, "Oh shit, I'm picking the ball out of the net here pretty soon." But their movement is so collective. That's the way I put it, right? It's no one individual moving just to get himself the ball. They're moving in sync, the three of them. Which, when you've got a forward unit that moves together and they move with an individual purpose, a singular purpose, it's very hard to stop. And then, as you said, Will, when players out the field in are given the opportunity and responsibility to give a good ball in, it comes in nicely. It comes in real nicely. It's a rarity. Maybe once or twice in the game we'll see the ball pucked in high, just out of pure, I suppose, emergency basis. Let's say every other ball they get is beautifully laid in because the run is so good. You know what I mean? Sometimes you say in the forwards, right, the quality ball will dictate, you know what I mean, the run of the player. Do you get me? But it's the other way around now. The run of the player dictating where the ball goes. It's fantastic to watch. And someone like Horgan, I haven't seen Horgan this sharp in terms of movement in a while now. Again, I'm open correction here. So watch him get the ball. His movement, there's separation the whole time. And that lad is going to be, 37 this year? Maybe he's already?
He is 37.
So you're saying, how could the lads not be out in front of him or beside him or challenge him on the ball? His movement is so, professional. Really, really sharp. So that every time he makes a move in a jerk, he knows the ball is coming. There's a yard or two. And he's got the option into either shoot or pass, and that's the way it is for them all. But to go back to your original question, yes, Alan Connolly, of course, he's fantastic, but the delivery they get is one thing, but their ability to retain the ball, and it's not just the touch work we're talking about, it's off the ball running, how they're able to create space, create separation, then retain the ball, and then make it work. It's top class, lads.
Keep Horgan in your mind for a second, Murph. I just, when I think of the cameras, I got to bring up TG Carr and give them a bit of graw here again. Someone got a little bit fancy in the director's chair today because multiple times they were using a drone camera, it seemed, behind the goal. It looked really good. It was just behind one of the terraces, and they would do this kind of sweeping view that went around. And you really appreciate for the second game where it was packed. And you just got this great kind of sign of wide colour. And then they had this shallow focus lens, a bit like they've been using in La Liga and in the NFL, which they were using down around Pat Ryan and Liam Cahill. And they used it a few times. You know, there were like sideline pucks happening in the first game particularly. I noticed they got down real close and used that camera as well. Just upping their game again. And still you get to see the wide shots which are behind when, the puck outs were happening during the game as well. I always appreciate that because you get a nice view of space and where players are moving. And then they cut back in. There's just that little bit of extra spice, Murph, that kind of, I don't know, I just looked at it and went, wow, this is like a massive step up here.
It was unreal, yeah, and exactly that. Like, I was just watching it, and when it panned to that drone picture, it looked unbelievable. Sure, like the Lee behind it there, the stadium, big sunny day, see the crowds coming in. They even did a bit of a, I suppose, what would you call it? A dramatic entrance of the players. Now, I don't know if there's music around it, but the players were coming in, the buses. I know traditionally that's done on and off, but they kind of do it with a lad with a handy old shoulder camera there. But they had the drone footage kind of following the Cork team in on the bus. There was loads of stuff about that. I was like, they're finer touches. Like, it's not that they're necessary, but it adds to the whole thing. And it kind of adds to, like, even the part they did a minute silence for Mick O'Dwyer, a round of applause. And they just cut. I know that's something they traditionally do as well, anyway, but they cut and they had a few words from Mick O'Dwyer and came back. It's not something we often mention on this, but the production quality was class. It was really good. And another one, actually, this is on a separate note, tangent, but there's a good ad on the telly at the moment. I actually can't remember, is it the GA or is it Allianz or is it one of the sponsors that do it? But it's about the Galway footballer who's the first lad from the Aran Islands to play on the Galway football team. But it shows a load of kids on the Aran Islands in a handball alley wearing Kerry jersey, Galway jersey, Leitrim jersey, all this. And they're like kicking points over the handball alley wall and stuff. Brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And I just felt it was like, you know, a kind of, what did we talk about at the start there where it was like the music? It was Sean Og, sorry. Sean Og has he did a little bit with Sean Og lately, and it kind of had the old, I suppose, you nearly associated with Michael Collins' music. I think all these things, they really add a cool effect, you know, to a day. You could have showed that match today in one camera up in the stand, and, you know, it does a job, fantastic. And you can do those extra touches that are really nice. I think the supporters really appreciate it. And the one I really appreciate to finish up is the puck outs from behind the goal. When they go behind the goal and show the puck out from there, I think that's class because there was one where they did it, and I think it was either Alan Connolly or someone. I think Alan Connolly got a point. But if they did the flat camera that they normally do in the stand, you would have just seen Alan Connolly get that ball and not know how he lost his player. I think he was meant to be on Ronan Maher at the time, and he lost Ronan Maher. But it started from behind the goal. You saw Patrick Collins. You could see what Patrick Collins could see, and you could see everything happening. And I think for a lot of hurling people, they also enjoy that. So, look, full credit to whoever, I suppose, was in charge of today. It was mighty.
That's Ireland final, though. Sorry, Murph.
No, go on.
That's TG Carr's Ireland final. That's what it equates to. That's their big inter-county coverage over now, right?
I was thinking exactly that. So I was thinking, okay, RT GA Go, or GA Plus, I should say, rebranded. I'm sure we'll do a great job for the rest of the year. And it's good to see that the Joe McDonagh Cup games are going to be on Clubber as well. So there is the potential for people to watch them. But there was part of me going, Joe, I really like TG Carr's coverage. Loads of it. Even the fact that like Liam Rush is ready on the pitch just afterwards to do an interview, and then they've got me all done. It's all very slickly put together. Whoever was directing that today was really, really good. Because when a team win a final, it's very difficult if they disappear into the crowd, as many of those Cork players did when there were people looking for autographs or a sliotar or whatever after the game, or family members are beside them. You lose the players really quickly. But they had like Rush with Patrick Horgan the minute it finished. And Darragh Fitzgibbon was just standing there. They got him before any of the presentations happened. Because after that, it can be difficult. They go off and lap around the pitch, or they go into the dressing room or whatever else, you won't get them. But that was just ready to go. And I agree with you, Skehill. Today was the centrepiece for them. It was their last league final. They're going to have the under-20 championships. They were promoting that massively during their coverage as well. But it's just such a pity that TG Carr disappear for the championship after this. Again, I would love if in the next round of rights that they could say, look, these guys provide mega coverage at the quieter part of the year. Let's give them some of the rights, some extra games. Let them have a piece of the pie for what they do for Gaelic games in this country, and particularly for hurling coverage. It's bloody great.
They also create a competition around it as well. Like, I mean, anytime, let's say, for example, we talk about Munster. Munster's 3 teams come out of it and 2 that don't. It's the best provincial championship because there's competition. You're forced to play better. Like, if you transfer that across to, okay, well, here's your few games, and you have TG Cahir and you have RT. Okay, we won't include Clubber that because they don't have the budget. But, like, it's not bashing either of them, but I've never seen TG Cahir do a bad production of anything. Like, they just really do something well, and I'm not even a Gael goer, and I just love watching the coverage. RT have great stuff as well. They have fantastic stuff. But I do think there's probably a healthy competition piece there that, like, I'm sure there's lads from RT looking on going, geez, that is class, and just appreciate it, and that's good. And I'm sure we'll see it from RTE now as well. But I think they trade off each other nicely there. That is a case that, geez, the lads who are in charge there today, they got that right. And even just, okay, even introducing new things that we haven't seen before. Like, all that stuff is brilliant for, again, just the production quality of the games. But I'd agree with you, Will. I think, there is a thing of TG Cahir do great stuff, and I think in the spirit of, including them, that not being their last game, let's say, going forward, it somehow to be rectified in a good way I think it would be suitable.
By the way, before we get back onto Patrick Horgan, I have not forgot that. It's still at the back of my mind here. GA Plus put out their fixtures, and again, some attractive hurling fixtures here, such as Tipperary versus Limerick on Sunday, April the 20th. Is going to be on there in the Munster Senior Hurling Championship. They've also got, I think it's 2 Clare games. They've got Clare and Tipp on May the 10th. And I think I saw another Clare game there. They've definitely got Waterford and Limerick on the 3rd. So they've picked attractive fixtures. No great surprise, because they want people to sign up and, to pay for a subscription. So they're using the tagline. It's the GA for the GA now at this stage. But despite the fact they've gone to a green and black, GA Plus definitely looks a lot like GA Go to me. Yeah, they've got Clare Tipp in the midst of all that as well. They'll also have Kilkenny Dublin in the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship, and they're going to show a fixture from the last round of the Munster Hurling and Leinster Senior Hurling as well on the 25th of May. I did see someone had tweeted back when I put the schedule out. They asked GA Plus, is there the possibility of a hurling season pass? And they said it is something they're looking into.
Good question.
So
Good question.
I know Skehill have no, like, I had no doubt Galway footballers are playing as we record this podcast at the moment, and I knew that Skehill would not be a bit interested in seeing how they were going to Gaelic Park. So,
well, no, in all fairness, lads, right? If they fly over to New York and can't pay them 10 points, there's something wrong. In fairness, like, look, let's be honest about it. I know they're in New York.
Well, that's good.
I know they're in New York.
But there we go. So potentially for those people who've asked the question, why can't we have a pass for one sport or the other? They are looking at it at the moment. Now, to pick up on that, Murph, because I didn't forget about Patrick Horgan, because Skehill said he's moving better, looking sharper than he has for a long time.
Yeah.
So his movement, would you agree that he's moving particularly well at the moment?
Yeah, he looks mighty. He looks so fit and healthy and not bound up by any sort of injuries or niggles, which in particular you'd be thinking of a fella, 37 years of age. But like, even he got his first point, and it was so smooth how he got the first point, broke onto the ball, cut back in towards the centre, popped it lovely over the bar. But I think it was the second point from play was absolute class. It was out towards the sideline. He came running out towards the 45 and, like, over the shoulder, falling away, hit the ball over the bar. And, like, I just think that you don't get that from someone who isn't moving well. And, like, he played, I don't think he was taken off. I might have missed it if he was, but while that game was in the jaws, he was in the middle of it, getting stuck in, breaking left and right. There was no facilitation of Patrick Horgan at any stage, or I haven't seen it in the last while. He's moving seriously well. And to be honest, I don't think Pat Ryan would be playing him out of any sort of tokenship or anything. It would just be a case of you're good enough or you're not. I think he actually really complements the way that it's Alan Connolly, Brian Hayes and himself up there. Like, the two boys kind of have a similar style. You can kind of throw the ball into them any way whatsoever. They're very dogged. For two forwards who are well capable of scoring, they're very dogged. They turn over the ball, and at the very least, if they can't win it, they hold it up really well for other people to come in. But Patrick Horgan then drifts around. He wins his own ball. He gets out in space, so like the Downies can hit him, or whoever's coming up the field can hit him. Kieran Joyce, they can pop it to him. But when balls are landing towards Brian Hayes or whoever Alan Connolly High wants to put in, have a look at Horgan. He's timing his run, he's losing his man, and he knows, he's smart enough to know where the the percentage chance of where that ball is going to break, he's going to be there. And like when you see the ball just breaking to him, you just go, he's going to get this now, he's going to throw a little deft shimmy and he's going to pop it over the bar, and it's machine-like, so it's mighty to see it, how well he's moving. And it's a credit to himself that he's managed to keep himself in that shape at that age. It's incredible stuff, really.
All right, Skehill, talk to me about Tipperary. How do you assess this performance? Because I was in the Liam Cahill on Off the Ball just before we recorded, and he was saying today is a bit of a learning experience for them. And he was saying particularly for the younger players, it was a big experience to go out playing Páirc Uí Chaoimh in an atmosphere like that, and he reckons they're going to come back and bounce back when the championship comes around. Give me your overall assessment of Tipperary's performance then.
Oh, it's a tough one. See, looking at the game, you always ask yourself, right, was the winner exceedingly good and was the loser bad? Let's say, or was an amalgamation of both? And it wasn't Tipperary bad, but they weren't as sharp as Cork were. That's very, very simple. So the Cork touch work and the movement and the synchronicity was above Tipperary. That's just fact. You know what I mean? Like when Tipperary got in through on the Cork goals, they were dispossessed. When Cork got through, goals. And it's just like I just think it's a work in progress, really, to be honest. And if I'm Liam Cahill, I'm probably going home looking at some of my younger players, and I'm quite content, to be fair. I'm happy with the way Simon Farrell played, Kennelly played, Stakelin played. I'm happy with the way they added to it. Brian O'Mara, even, I know he's on the scene for a couple of years, but like defending strong, and defending against a very difficult forward unit. So if you come out with some kind of positivity playing against the Cork forwards at the moment, it's you have to hang on to something positive to go forward. Yes, they're going to play in a couple of weeks back in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, which seems like now it's a daunting task, but it's not as if Tipperary are now a bad team. No, they're not. They have the nucleus and kind of the fundamental ingredients to make a good team. I just think they need to get it on script more. I find issue with their puck out, to be honest. Okay. I think the Cork puck out is a lot more cleaner, you know what I mean, and synchronized, as I said. The Tipperary puck out has probably caused them a small bit of trouble, I think. What I mean with that is the choice of where they go long and when they go short, building out from the back. Like when Tipperary build out from the back, this is me just watching out today, it felt like that they were kind of playing what was in front of them. There was no real set procedure or plan. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the third goal kind of came directly from that as well.
Yeah, which is fair. Look, that happened from time to time, don't get me wrong. But when Cork built out of the back, it felt like, right, if we're going short now, the Cork forwards would move in a certain direction to create space down the line for the likes of a Cormac O'Brien or others to deliver down the line. And then you're heading to grass. Whereas when Tipperary were getting it, they were heading into contact and heading into kind of 50-50 battles. For me, if I was the county manager with Liam Cahill, I'd be saying I need to focus on our own puck out to see can we maintain primary possession when we have the ball most. The team has the ball most when they have their own puck out. That's just the nature of the game. But everything else above, like even when we look at the forward line retention rate for Tipperary, it wasn't at the same level, unfortunately, as Cork was. So when you have that, one of the stars of the show for Tipperary of late was McCarthy. Didn't have a title mark now, to be fair. But in terms of ball retention inside, didn't have his best day. Ford got off to a good start, you know what I mean? But unfortunately, the just forwards didn't click. O'Connor didn't click, you know what I mean? Willie Connors didn't click. This kind of thing didn't move well. And it's a work in progress. They're not the finished article overnight, of course not. I know some people were saying that they were one of the favourites to Ireland. They have work to do, and they know that themselves. But the ingredients are there. All is not lost. The ingredients are certainly there.
Yeah, look, here's the thing, Murph. They went 13 points down within the game. They finished out losing by 10. In a way, I don't know how much you put that down to maybe Cork letting the foot off the accelerator a little bit in the second half. But I guess some credit has to go to Tipperary, because when that third goal bangs in, that could have got really messy really quick.
Yeah, it could have. I think, to be honest, there's an element of truth in both. Like a simple thing is that because Cork were out of sight so early in this game, we kind of always talk about in hurling that there's no score really out of sight, because we've seen games. We go back to think of Tipperary and Limerick a few years ago, where I think Tipp were up by 10 points at half time. They reeled them in. The scenarios were different there, but you really felt Cork were out of sight early, and it just became. I had one or two lads text me that I know from Tipp, and they felt it was nearly like a training session. And that was a Tipperary supporter saying to me that they felt it was, even though Tipp pulled back a few points, they didn't feel it was kind of, that it's an arm wrestle now and they're over, that they're beating Cork. I know Liam Cahill said it. I saw the off the ball interview with Stephen Gleeson after the game, and Liam Cahill said we won the second half, and it's true, they won the second half, but it's kind of it's a little bit clutching, to be honest, because Cork. If they got in any way of a sniff near Cork, I think Cork would have turned it back up again, and they would have started going. It was kind of very much Cork were changing, they were getting the subs in, they were moving around, they were popping the ball, they were getting their scores. Of course, Tipp, I saw the Tipp players really, I suppose, looking for something there to maybe ignite the fire and maybe rally again and go get a few scores. And Tipp were really trying to do that. To an extent, they achieved it. But I really feel that If you can give them credit for not folding after third goal, absolutely. But it very much felt at that stage that once Cork went in at half-time, they were flying it. They came out in the second half. They were all their business, but it was very much about seeing this game out, get more lads on the field and just hurl really well for the second half. And that's what they did. And I don't think it really mattered in the second half if they won by 10, if they won by 8, or if they won by 14. The manner in which they won was the more important thing there. So, look, I'd agree with Skehill. This is not... I wouldn't be cutting the legs from under Tipperary at this stage whatsoever. I'd be interested to see what other teams would have done against Clare or against Cork today, because Cork were just really good. And I think one point we haven't mentioned as well, which I think is kind of important, during the league, when we start, particularly in your February games and March games, early March, let's say, when they're playing in county grounds and the ball is heavy and the ball is wet, it allows for a closer game. We're getting into the territory now. Today was the first best day of the year we could see. Good weather, ball moving fast. The ground in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, the field promotes fast hurling. And I think what we see then, we spoke about Limerick over the last years. You know, Skehill, when you get Limerick to Croke Park, they're dangerous. I think what we saw today is that because... the weather, everything. I'm not saying the weather won it for Cork, but it certainly allowed Cork to play with that freedom where they're snapping the ball around. You're not getting caught in as many rucks. The ball isn't getting stuck in the ground where, like, those things allow a team stay within fighting distance of a really good team. And I genuinely saw today that this is more of what we're going to see from Cork. Like, as the weather gets better and we have sunny days, that possession game that they play where they're snapping balls, it'll all be to hand. It'll all be razor sharp. It'll all be so clinical. And I think, like we were saying with Limerick in the last 5 years, when your game plan is tight, when all the players know what you're doing, and when they're executing it really well, that's only going to benefit Cork going forward, like when Limerick start getting the show up and going here now as well. So I do think today was one of the things where I thought, this is a bit of summer hurling here now. This is, we're starting to see what these lads can really do when they open it up.
Like Murph, I think now, would you agree with me that we know how Cork play? So their best players, I'd say, in terms of building the ball are between positions 5 and 12. So those 8 players are top class, right? They pull their half-forward line way out, okay? Yeah. They either give the ball to them deep or they run through you.
Yeah.
That means then your half-forward line's way out and your half-back line's out. So it creates a monumental amount of space inside your forward line. So now everyone has this code decrypted. Now, how do you answer the code is the question. Not that simple.
No, it's not.
Simple. Yeah. Like, you're going to have to keep your half-back line deep to cover off their forwards. You do that, their half-forward line are going to punish you from distance. We saw Tim O'Mahony, Shane Barrett, bring in Dalton, that's Harnedy. They're going to shoot the lights out from 50 yards. Now what do? Yeah. You bring out your forwards. Now your forwards are deep. Are we defenders or are we attackers? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's your primary function? So I'm my most interesting aspect looking forward, this is how our team is going to counter Cork's game plan. Now, the pitch is expansive. Of course it is. It's a big pitch and it suits the way Cork play. That's why I was saying it's a 5-point head start. But how are they going to get on now when they head into smaller grounds is what I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
When I asked both of you a question, which has come in various different forms, I was just going through the Twitter to see what people have sent us there. And a lot of people asking, you can take it first, Murph, are Tipperary really better than the Tipperary that we saw in 2024?
That one is, do you know what, actually, I'll say this. Yeah, I do think they are better. I think they're better from the point of view that like a lot of weight was put on the shoulders of Gerard O'Connor after the league performance he had in 2024. And, that's unfair as well in some ways because he's a young player coming in. He has another year under his belt now. Like they had injuries last year as well. They kind of had a very much of a transition phase, but they seem to embed in more players like Darren McCarthy, again, Sam O'Farrell. These lads have really come in and made an impact. Mickey Breen, who had moved around a lot, is at cornerback now, and they seem to be getting really the best hurling out of him there because the type of game that they're playing, he does kind of drift up the field anyway. But they have a nice rhythm. Like Willie Connors is back in, hurled really well midfield for the league. Alan Tynan, a man who's been half back and half forward, he again has had a really good league. I do think they're better, to be honest, if I'm to pick yes or no. But the thing is about it is, are they good enough now to go and sustain a Munster championship? That's really the question. They are in a better place, but we see how competitive Munster is. Is the level that Tipperary has gotten to now, will that carry him through Munster? And I think that's the real question. I do think they're a better team. I do think they're playing a better brand of hurling. I think they're playing with more confidence. And when I say
I'm
better
not
brand,
looking to lead you here, but you are talking yourself into a situation where you're about to say Tipperary aren't getting out of the group.
well, no, we were asked two or 3 weeks ago, and I think I said Cork, Clare, and Limerick. Anyway,
Okay.
well, at the moment, I would say I don't think they are going to get out because, and again, I know you'll tell us, Will, when we're doing our Munster Championship predictions. I'm sure you'll save it for a quieter week.
Couple of weeks' time, but why not take the question now, based on what you've seen in the league?
Well, look, I've said it there. At the moment, for me, it's hard to look past. And I know people will say Clare got relegated, but I have to give Clare credit in terms of they're All-Ireland champions. What are you laughing at, Skehill?
I just say I did this. You walked straight to that one away.
Yeah. Well, it was always coming. It was always coming.
You actually talked yourself into it.
Always able to use them.
I did. Actually, I did. Yeah, no, I'll take the rap for that one there. It was a sunny day. I've been out in the sun all day. I'm walking myself into things here.
I saw you planting trees in a while ago.
Oh, yeah, that was on TG Car. Yeah. That was a few years
ago. I have to ask you. I know it's probably the wrong time. The run you did with the Kenyan runners. What distance was that?
It was very good. So they offered us, there's 3 distances. I think it was, if I'm correct in saying, there was a 1K you could do. By the way, we were at altitude. This is where the Kenyan, I know they have a few places around Kenya. But this is
where marathon winners are made.
I mean, there was lads coming in who were like, oh, I won the world championships here. I was gold in this. I was gold in that in Olympics. There was lads everywhere. And, so they gave us an option of 1K, 3K, or 6K. I think it was something like that. And sure, everybody then being pure competitive. Oh no, I'll do the 6K. I just by the way, lads, you're at altitude, and these lads are Kenyan runners. So you had Tom Morrissey, who's about 94, 95 kg, running beside a Kenyan fella who's about 50 kg and does this his whole life. And lads are too proud. So I remember with that, I did the 6K. I was talking to Neil McManus for a bit, and I was talking to Paddy Burke as well of Antrim. And I remember after a while, the three was like, do you mind if we stop talking here? Because it feels like I'm breathing through a straw. I can't actually get my breath here at the moment. But what was gas about it was we went off and we did a big lap, 6K, came back. And so what it is as well is Kenyan runners go running at dawn. That's part of, I don't know, their routine or something to do more run. So it was the sun was rising. You're in Kenya, the red earth. It was class now. It was unreal. We came back then and we were chatting to a few of the runners. And there was one guy coming out. Can't remember his name. And we were chatting to him. And I was like, oh, what type of running do you do? Myself, Sean Finn, I think Alton Harney or Roscommon were talking to him. But what kind of running do you do? What's your distance? And he goes, oh, marathon. I'm like, Jesus, right, you must be good. So what's your training here? He goes, well, I alternate between 10K and 20Ks. I was like, go away. So you do 10K today, 20K tomorrow. He goes, no, I'm going to do 10K now. I'll do 20K in the afternoon. So we just turned him in, right? We're going for breakfast there, bud. Good luck.
30K in the one day.
But he looked at me confused, no, I'm going to have to do 10K now to warm up. I'll come back then. I'll have my breakfast. I'll do a bit of stretching. They do this other yoke then as well, where they brought us down and they do a lot of rhythmic stuff where they set up this little kind of little route where it's, there's little ropes and things, and they'll bounce in and out of it. And it's very they're dancing more than it's a kind of a lad sprinting through ladders. It's not like that. Yeah. And they do a session there. They'll all come together and there'll be about 20 of them and they're bouncing in and out. Really rudimental stuff, no fancy gear. But yeah, no, that stuff was mighty. That was mighty. I know we're going to complete tangent.
The program was a very good program, I have to say.
Oh, well, the whole thing is brilliant. Alan Kearns does it, and I know it's probably a thing we can do even dedicate a part of a bonus pod too. But he's done 3 of those trips now, and we were the first lads to kind of do it and kind of ventured into it, going not really knowing what we're going to do, despite the fact Alan Kearns has been huge in all these things and had really successful trips. But it's just very humbling, the places you go to, and it's just, the small amount of stuff there, you figure out the healthcare systems and different things in rural Kenya in particular, and then just the simple things like people trying to just live off the land and different things. It's so tough with the climate that's there. So the whole time we had a great experience, and it was mighty mixing with different players and different things. But I think the whole lot of us came back kind of going, Jesus, we don't have it hard at all, so. It was class, and I think the documentary, in fairness, again, TG Carr and Brian Tyers were with us on it. They covered it really well, and really, I think, hit the note of it as well. But
crucially, you've also made it very difficult for the Premier Review podcast to cut both of you here, where you've both predicted the Tipperary aren't going to get out of the group, because I assume, Skehill, you're about to say they're not getting out either.
Well, hold on. Your question was originally, are Tipperary a better team than last year?
Well, take that one
So
first.
last year they were beaten by Limerick by 14 points. They were beaten by Cork by 18 points, what this was. So their first 2 fixtures are a repeat of what that was last year. So will the gap be the same? Those 2 fixtures, I'm going to have to say no. Excuse me. I don't think the gap will be that much. What the hell? So I don't think the gap will be that much. Are they better team?
Yes. That's the cyanide from the Premier Podcast now, or something together.
Coming through, yeah.
Put into his My Waddy, but anyway.
Yeah.
Might I say that my Waddy is terrible, whatever flavour she chose this week, but nonetheless, I can't give out too much. She's the boss. Tipperary better team. They are a better team. Well, let's be frank about it. Yeah, they've introduced players, okay, that are they're young, right, but they're young and effective. So I'm thinking that they're better. How much better are they? Like, will they take Cork and Munster? The answer for me is no at the moment. Will they take Limerick? I genuinely don't know that. Like, Limerick are kind of a bit of a conundrum at the moment for me. I'm not sure where they stand. We knew where they stood last year. So that's why I'm pointing towards them. Like, where they stand, I don't know. Will there be a 14-point gap? I'm going to have to say no. But that's the first 2 fixtures. And then, like, if you lose them 2 fixtures, they're out. You know, it's that kind of simple. So they're a better team for sure. Better league team, obviously. Are they better championship team? Remains to be seen, but I'm going to say they are.
Yeah. And like, even for me in that prediction of saying, like, I'm going Clare, Cork and Limerick, I think at the moment I don't think anyone's going to argue from what we've seen of Cork and Limerick automatically. And some people might go, why are you going with Clare? Last year when we did the All-Ireland final, me and you Will went with Clare, and I think Skehill, you went with Cork. And I think me and you Will kind of went, there's just something about Clare that I feel their confidence and belief is in a place where they go, okay, yeah, we may have sustained this over the last while, but we do have a really good team. And they have those creative players. Okay, Shane O'Donnell looks like we're not going to see him for Munster. But I'm kind of giving Clare the benefit of the doubt in this, and that they've disappeared now after, right, they've gone off, they're relegated, but they're now recuperating, and I think they're going to come back and find their way out of Munster. But the thing is about it, any of the listeners who are listening, I'm sure loads of lads have their own tree, and they're saying, well, what about Waterford? For me, let's say even talk about Waterford, you know, great league final today, looked really well. The only reason, and I would say this about any Munster team who plays in 1B, it's very hard to say that you've seen enough of that team to say that you can see them coming out of Munster when you're playing in 1B. Like all the other Munster teams, we've seen them in 1A. We've seen them, you know, be tested against even, you know, Galway and Kilkenny and all that as well outside of Munster. So for me with Waterford, they're looking good. You know, they've tied the Burka back, and, you know, Austin Leeson's obviously back in the mix and everything. It's looking great. But if you're picking these things on the balance of what you've seen, I'm going with Limerick because I know who Limerick are, Cork because we've seen what Cork are, and then it's a toss-up. Then you're kind of going Clare, Tipperary, Waterford. Waterford I haven't seen enough of, and in between Tipperary and Clare, I'm just going to go, you know what, I think Clare are going to get back on the bandwagon here and get moving again. And like we said, Tipperary do have a tough start. So it's not that they're, as we said, they are a better team than last year. But what we've seen in Munster is that you can be a really good team and not get out of Munster.
Yeah, no, for sure. When I look at Clare's fixtures here, again, it's a cliche to say you have to hit the ground running, but from their perspective, right, they've got Cork at home, first round. They need a much improved performance from what we saw before. They go to Waterford before their break, and then they play Tipperary at home. Crucially, I think they have to have a couple of wins at that point if they're going to qualify. You don't want to be in a situation where you have to go to Limerick in the last round looking for a result where Limerick could well need something at home in that fixture as well. So,
but like hypothetically, Will, like you've said it there, for example. So let's take Clare as an example. So Clare go to Cork. Let's say Clare potentially lose Cork, because you can kind of pick a pattern.
Clare Cork at home.
Sorry, the Clare Cork at home. Sorry, yeah. So Clare of Cork at home, and let's say we'll go. I'll probably predict at that stage that Cork would beat Clare because, you know, what we've seen from two teams, Cork would beat Clare. And even if Cork lose that one, Cork go to Waterford then, isn't it? Or Clare go to Waterford then.
They do.
Clare go to Waterford. Clare could get a result there. They then get a break. And Tipperary have now come through Limerick and Cork, correct in saying that?
Yeah.
Like, that's a tough one. And now two teams, and that's the thing about week on week and the I suppose, the journey that is the Munster Championship. They potentially then go and face a Tipperary team. You might have it in front of you, Will. Is it in Thurles or Ennis?
I think that game it's at home, Ennis for Clare.
Okay, so technically then you could have a Clare team at home against Tipperary, who are now off the back of 2 losses, really need a win. It'll be a dangerous game, but Clare might have gotten a win. That's just one scenario. In Waterford, they may have gotten a win. So some of these things, you know, you kind of need that little bit of the journey you have or the patch you have in front of you might assist you in doing it. Now again, all that could first swear of the night could fall to shite. That mightn't pan out that way at all. But I'm just saying that, you know, the way, if you look back at the roots of other teams over the last few years, you know, sometimes the timing of these matches can be crucial, and even that break week as well, to give you a little bit of time to take stock for the next match. You know, that's hypothetically a path teams could take.
Yeah, okay. Before we get off that, Skehill, do you see them coming out, Tipperary?
I just have to say, Murph, I appreciate you forewarning the listeners about your swear.
Well, as Will said at the start, there could
Very
be people
gentleman-like, I have to say. Very gentleman-like.
Yeah. I might swear a little bit later on. I have a little story about Leitrim hurlers. We played them today, but I might save that for later on. My second swear word.
We won't draw that out, so okay.
No, yeah.
Some lad's going to get it out, I think. Or the ref. I'm not sure which it is.
No.
By the way, Murph, he's avoiding terribly here. He's just gone, oh, yeah, you were going to swear. I'm not going to actually say what's going to happen.
And he went on to the referee and said, right, Skehill, it's like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire now. The spotlight was on you here.
I hate this question. Of all the questions I get, I hate this one the most.
You were sneering at me there.
I was
4 minutes ago.
I was, but Jesus, I was nearly laughing inside, saying that I'm going to memorize. I wrote down that, like, oh, Jesus. You see, Clare are sometimes a bit of an enigma. I don't know how to. I'm trying to describe this, right? But if I was to entrust a team to shut down another team, right, and to bring it to a mental place that, like, you think other teams are incapable of, I would pick Clare. You know,
hold on a second here. But Clare aren't an enigma when it comes to the group stages in Munster. Their record in the group stage is incredible.
It is incredible, but come on, where they stand right now, okay? Where they don't have full availability. That was a bit of a tongue twister. Availability of their players, right? As well as probably not the best run in. To be fair, not the best run in, you could say. But still, something in the back of my mind says, if there's a team that can do it and pull it out of the fire, you know, you nearly put them on the same level as Limerick for pulling a specific match out of the fire. Like they were playing games against Limerick over the last number of years when you think they have no right to be within, to contest them. Particularly the one where they got beaten by Tipperary in the first round a couple of years ago, and they went on and bet Limerick in the grounds. That one for me just sticks out in my mind as to how they produced that. The day John Conlon's brother got married and got man the match, how they produced that when things were kind of going against them. Now fast forward to the present day and are saying, right, they're not in the best position. But they just seem to embody their manager in this kind of resilience and say, right, whoever's in front of us, let's just beat them. So that's what's twisted me. You know what I mean? I know Tipperary have had a really good league campaign, really good, really positive, but I can't look past Clare. And these are Ireland champions, don't get me wrong, but I can't look past them. You'd say there's no form, Grant, and we're always saying we're an evidence-based approach, but the evidence goes back not just 6 weeks ago, it goes back to 3 or 4 years. So it's Clare, it's Cork, it's Limerick. Not in that order, no. Hold on a second. Not in that order.
The three are going to qualify now.
Don't make me go flipping call them the final now. But
don't worry. 2 weeks time, we're going to have to do some details, so don't worry.
There's another thing that you don't mention. I think the whole Shane O'Donnell thing. Yes, it's a big loss to Clare, and we'll see if he arrives in magically at some stage in championship. But you have to remember as well. You have Ryan Taylor, you have Aaron Shanahan, you have Peter Duggan, you have Ian Galvin, Tony Kelly. Like, yes, Shane O'Donnell is the most creative forward out of them in terms of creating something from nothing. But like David Fitzgerald, like they've so many good players there that in terms of
McCarthy,
like if you go forward 5 years, for example, and we're sitting here talking about Tipperary, you could be talking about, well, look, geez, they've Darren McCarthy, they've Jake Morris, whereas Clare lads might have retired. At the moment, I think you have to give respect to the Clare forwards in particular that are there, because they've been at this level for a little bit longer and they've been tried and tested. And I think that's for me where it's just tipping the scales that, okay, Shane O'Donnell's gone, but they have enough lads there to account for that.
Yeah. Here's a dirty question for you, Skehill, before we move on to the 1B final. This came in from John S. on Spotify. Will, can you please ask Mr. Skehill how he felt about diving after Davy Glennon's theatrics for the equalising score in the 2012 Drawn All-Ireland final? I'm sure he wasn't calling out his teammate as a cheat and wouldn't care if they'd won the replay. I absolutely hate diving, but it can't be okay if it's one of my teammates or county men doing it. Good for the goose, good for the gander. Go on. Davy Glenn, 2012.
I say you weren't expecting that.
I was not expecting that. Will you cast me back 13 years ago? Yeah. What do you want me to do? To condemn my teammate, is it?
I think he does want you to. I think
literally he wants you to retrospectively.
So these are the facts, right? These are the facts. David Glennon picks up the ball. He gets tackled by Jackie. He dives. The referee gets fooled and awards a free. That's it. He dived. Absolutely, he dived. 100%. Did anyone get sent off? Did he fake an injury? No.
I think John S. Is it John S. wants you to say it with more
yeah.
pain, and I think he didn't. I don't think he expected you to be that straight up about Skehill.
That direct.
He doesn't
Come on,
know, Mr. Skehill.
if he's listening to the podcast by now, he knows I'm black or white. Very simple. The question is, did David dive? Yes, he dived, 100%. Did he fool the ref? Yes, he fooled the ref. Okay. Did we gain from it? Was that the free where Kenny put over?
He did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
Okay, yeah, we obviously gained from it, let's say, right? Do I
we
condemn him?
We gained from it as well. We went to Jamaica off the back of it, so we're
I condemn him to death. Okay.
Now, by the way, in fairness to Skehill, the minute I saw that, and I said I'd keep it out of the Spotify comments because it was particularly spicy, was that only a few weeks ago, Skehill completely called out Conor Cooney for the foul on Mike Casey.
Correct.
Yeah.
Didn't dance around it. He didn't go, oh, no, he's a good guy and, this is out of character, wherever you went. No, that should have been a red card.
Like this crack. So if I have something in my mind, right, even if he's a friend or an ex-teammate, right, I'm not going to go over rubbing his back, making him feel like he's heroic. I'm going to tell him exactly what's in my head, right, not to make his feelings any better. So the Conor Cooney incident, 100% he was wrong, should have been red carded. What more do you want me to say? That he deserves 50 lashes across the arse? Like, what is it like?
Well, why not? You might as well say that. Sure.
That he should be 2 years suspended? Yeah, he should never hurl again? What do you want me to say? Jesus.
Yeah, some lads just want more. They want more. Yeah.
Some lads are convinced that you're biased without being biased. I was like, I said to you last week, it may well be on the member spot, somebody tweeted me like 3-4 times going, you have to call out that Brian Duigan should have been sent off because you were complaining that James Mann was incorrectly sent off. And put it under like unrelated tweets as well. Apparently going, here, like, you've assumed a bias and I'm trying to protect somebody here. It's not. And I literally replied and went, look, that hit was dangerous. That hit was high. Probably should have been a red card.
But that's where it goes back to, like, as we were saying recently, Will, the week before last, I think it was, in terms of social media, these people they've born confidence out of it where they think they can debate people, but it's just levels of extremism. They go so the complete far side thinking you're the bollocks, that's completely biased for your own team, and they're going to say anything to defend them. Well, it's not. Actually, it's the contrary. We're going to tell the truth. That's all it is, Yeah. Like, so for example, like, Murph, if we talked about, I mentioned, who did I mention? Which was the player? Keane Kenny.
Yeah.
I said that he went down soft. You said, yeah, he did. 100%.
Because I think the lads weren't happy though that I didn't lean into it a bit more. I can't remember that time, but you said it, and I think what we spoke about afterwards was lads got on to me about that I didn't say it then after you, or maybe I don't know that I didn't.
It wasn't you didn't say it. It was like you didn't say it forcefully enough.
Okay, that's what it was. But like it was, it was, and I think whether you're talking about the Cork one in Park Equive where he could have got sent off on Kieran Joyce, or the Alan Tynan one, of course it was, but I think the three of us have been caught by that over the last while. We're like, you didn't come out and write it down and stamp your name on it, But I think that night for that one, you said it and I agreed with you, but it wasn't seen as being enough or something. So look, we're not going to say things 3 times on the podcast.
No. So John, come back to me.
And we're not going to
answer your fucking question sufficiently.
I think we were all guilty those 2 weeks as well, of where the 3 of us in the group were watching the games in question. We were like, do any of us disagree that was a red card or that was a flop to the ground or whatever else? And like, none of us were really disagreeing with it. By all means, if we all have different thoughts on it, let's meander off into that conversation. But I thought we called out the diving and we called out the high hits each time. Anyway, the 1B final then. This is one where like Waterford won pulling up, but bizarrely enough, and I said it earlier as an Offaly supporter, last 15 minutes were actually quite encouraging. They outscored Waterford by 110 to 2 points, I think, after Oisin Kelly's second goal, and played a totally different style and really put the push onto Waterford. That's it. And I appreciate that their intensity had dropped, but it was a better way to lose a game. To go down 127 to 220 than at times when Waterford were like 15 points up, it looked like this was going to really, 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 really get bad. Skehill, you mentioned it already, and I'm not going to Murph first for a reason, and we'll explain why in a second. But Waterford ran off, I think it was 8 of the first 9 scores in the game. As you say, they were getting space, they were creating space. You kind of got the feeling at that stage there was a bit of a gap between the two teams.
Yeah, there was. And in fairness, like, it was the gap around the middle, Will, to be fair. Like, and even when the opportunities arose for the forward units, like Waterford were taking them, but they weren't under as much duress or pressure as the Offaly forwards were. But I still, like, in the same breath, I can picture Brian Duigan had 3 opportunities. Like, Dan Raven had 1, Dan Burke had 2, Charlie Mitchell had 1. Whereby you're saying in the first half against the conditions, if you can slot 50% of them, including the goal chance, like, geez, you're not in a terrible spot. But the thing is, Waterford got the ball in space, not under too much pressure. And the thing is, as well, the deliveries that came from the Waterford midfield and backs, they weren't under pressure. So they were able to place the ball into a perfect position for an oncoming Waterford forward. And some of the scores from Waterford got, let's say, particularly Kearns one, like where you've got Mark Fitzgerald coming up with number 3 on his back, gets to the 70-yard line, hands it to Kern, and then the supporting Kern, I think, geez, this is very go-forward attitude from Waterford. That just was typified throughout them for the day, I think, to be fair. And they did it both ways. When Waterford Offaly dropped off in the kind of the second half of the first half, that makes sense, Waterford started shooting from distance then. So they had a kind of copped from both sides. So it's just that Waterford were slicker. Like, and you'll have them days where teams are very slick and their touch work is slick and they're on the breaks quickly and the forwards are moving with energy and the ball is going over the bar. And that's just the way it was in the first half. And to be fair, I will say, come 55 minutes, Offaly did put in a very good accord. And I did think Diagon should have had a penalty. I thought his hurl was poorly.
His hurl gets played, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's a penalty. Look, that's just reality. It's a penalty. Would that have swayed the game? No, it wouldn't. But there was a small bit of a groove for Offaly at the time. You know, if they got another goal there after rushing Curly's too, you're thinking, geez, the landscape could be way different here. But they kept thundering forward, and they did to Waterford. Waterford to them in that purple patch period. Now you can say Waterford took the intensity levels down a bit because of the nature of the scoreboard. But Offaly were winning primary possession in the half back line. They were winning the breaks in the midfield. They were going forward from the half forward line up, and they were running at Waterford. And that's what let's say was typical of a Waterford performance in the first half. Offaly kind of matched that in the second half, but it was just a little bit too late, too little too late. And when the gap closed to 4 points, I still feel like Offaly had an opportunity or two. If they kept playing the same system as that, like they're running through the half forward line, I think they could have, I won't say snuck the game, but they could definitely get the margin down sooner.
They reverted to the diagonal ball in long every single time then. And while like Diagon was getting a bit of change and sometimes Oisín Kelly was as well, they started to play far too many balls that were on the right percentage side of the defender at that stage. While when they were chipping away, it was actually all about moving the ball around and getting into a good shooting position. It was almost like they'd decided another goal is the only way to cut this 4 points, so we're going to go long every time.
Well, how much opportunity came from Offaly by Dan Burke coming to the middle?
Loads, yeah.
Dan Burke was picking up ball, let's say, in his own 65, running hard, and he was providing opportunities. Like some of the passes, like the pass to Oisín Kelly, Jesus, brilliant for the goal. Do you know what I mean? And the pace he was attacking from, it's very hard to nullify an attack when you've got a centre forward with that pace coming through the middle. You know what I mean? It just creates open opportunity. Whereby if you hit in like some of them balls Offaly hit in the last 6 minutes, I'd say, they were kind of 50-50 balls, so the opportunity wasn't there for Offaly, to be fair.
Less than 50-50.
Yeah,
but Waterford were more than happy at that point to defend in that way. Because you can go back, and even if Diagon broke the ball, Waterford were happy enough to sweep up the second ball. And there was a couple of times when they, cut out passes that were just a little bit overly ambitious. I think if Offaly kept chipping away, they could have maybe got that down to a couple of points. And the next thing you start to kind of create a bit of nervous energy, but it didn't happen.
Yeah. And then the same breath last year, only for Troy, like with Jesse at the end, it could have been on the right off. So, like if you're looking for positives, first of all, promotion for Offaly is a huge positive. I don't think an awful lot of the media, national media, and including myself, I have to admit, would have said that Offaly would get promoted this year of the league. That's a huge positive. Heading into a Leinster Championship now with a pep in their step, and that's Offaly's first real taste for that group, you could say, of championship pace hurling. I know they played the league last year, okay, but like as Murph was alluding to earlier on, in terms of the pitch, the surface, the sunlight, etc., a very nice day. That was a championship pace day that Offaly were going to have to take an awful lot of learnings from. So if you're looking for positives, look that they got exposed, and after the younger players got exposed to what it's like to play a top level pace game. So heading into their Leinster Championship, they've got a pre-rehearsal under the belt. So I think it's a huge positive league campaign for them.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with Stephen Bennett afterwards. He was saying like there is that possibility that Offaly will rock a team or two during the Leinster Championship. Question about Paddy Levy as well. Declan Horan, should he be brought as sanctioned for bringing the game into dispute for the way he carries his hurley around? I'm guessing that's again back to the.
He literally carries it with the tape of the hurlers.
Yeah, strange, isn't it?
Like he carries it so far up. The hands cut him someday.
Yeah, again, he was doing the unusual passing style again. The only thing is they don't tend to fall.
Yeah.
I remember, was it Podging was talking about that last year? He was saying, it looks weird, but it's not ineffective if the pass continues to get to a teammate.
Look, it's like Taggy Fogarty. He used to swap the hands and Wally Walsh, and you're saying, what's he at there? But by J's were they effective? Yeah. Them two voice,
Yeah. That was part 2 of Declan's question. His first part, Skehill, you can take this, and Murph, I'll bring you in a second, because I want to talk about why Murph wasn't much in the first half of the 1B final. So Declan says, are Offaly going to learn anything from being hammered week on week next year in 1A? Because they will be. Are they better off in 1B with a test against Clare and a lesser one against Wexford, and then a few confidence builders against 1B teams? What do you think about that for a second? I don't really subscribe to that.
No.
Because what's the point in trying to improve your lot if it's just to stay at that level forevermore? Like, if that means they're playing 1B teams and getting a morale booster and whatever else, they're never exposed to the top level. And you'll only ever get a game against 2, maybe 3 good teams within there if you want to go beyond the level that they're hoping that they're at the moment. Well, next year, they might take a few scutcheons. They might not. Last time they were in 1A, probably should have beaten Clare. Last time they were in 1A, they played well away to Kilkenny. I don't take it as a complete inevitability that they're going to get hammered in all the games.
But look at the group players they have at the moment. So next year, will they be contending with an under-20 championship in their way? No, they won't.
Not as many players, no.
The vast majority of the players, I say, I mean this respectfully, the senior quality players in the under-20 squad will be playing with the seniors. They'll be gone out with the under-20s. Will they be contending with Fitzgibbon? Potentially, yeah. But they'll have their full complement to deal with, I think. Where will they be at then in terms of next year? They'll be better on. They'll have a Leinster Championship under the belt. How are they going to go in this year's Leinster Championship remains to be seen. They're going to come up against big teams that are going to be, again, as I said, forewarned as to what Offaly are going to bring. So I reject that. Please hit the question, but I reject the foundation of it. You know, you're judging Offaly on where they were last year or the year previous as to where they can potentially get to. So the team like Offaly, who is continuously improving and come up through the ranks and tasked with coming out of Division 1B and successfully, achieved that, deserve their shot in 1A, regardless of what people think, regardless of opinion, and we'll judge them rightfully next year. But as Murph said recently, the league has its own challenges, right? And that the pace of the game will say, it won't be 100 miles an hour. So I'm saying 1A mightn't be the cauldron that Offaly might think, or people might think it is at the moment, So if we're at about teams, we want teams to improve. We want the teams who were the heroes of yesteryear, like Offaly in the mid-90s. We want them to get back to where they were. You have to give them opportunity, and respect their efforts to get there. Straight up. No, they weren't handed anything. So I don't believe they're going to get killed next year. I think they're going to be challengers, of course they are. And they might get a hammer or 1 or 2. They might. But they have to, iron sharpens iron is my opinion. So if you're there, you have to either fucking shit or get off the pot, I'm afraid. So but they deserve the opportunity to be there. Simple as that.
Yeah, and look, again, I appreciate that tweet probably came in the first half of the game today when it was particularly messy looking. Still scored 220 by the end of that 1B final, despite not playing particularly well throughout most of it. The good thing for you, Murph, you put Brian Duigan into your team of the league last week.
Yeah.
Did really well today. Scored 12 points. Probably could have scored a bit more. Decent save from Billy Nolan in the first half. Could have had a penalty.
Bad shot. But
yeah.
Let's just get it straight.
Needs to go across the goalkeeper, didn't he?
Needs to go on the deck.
Yeah.
On the ground. That's where he put the ball.
Give the goalkeeper a chance to put it in that region.
I keep saying it. They won't listen.
Yeah. Look, maybe he listens to the pod. It seems everyone listens to the pod, Murph, because you came up against a pod listener earlier today. What were you up to?
We were playing Leitrim today with the club. There's Mike Wall, who manages Leitrim. He's involved in our club as well, so he's up there managing. So they're looking for, I suppose, a neutral enough game for them getting prepped for their championship. And we played them up in Kilcock and Kildare. But actually, look, there's just lads everywhere. Anywhere you are, lads are just these lads falling out of the woodwork. Who just say it to you. I was donating blood there 2 months ago. And the man who's taking the blood off me from Carlow, I think it was James. I think it was.
Did you get paid for that? No,
I don't get paid.
You don't even get a pint of Guinness anymore. I don't.
No, you don't get paid. Jesus, well, it'd be actually dangerous to be paying lads. To be lads down to a half pint of blood in their body just to get a few pints. But anyway, I don't want to get off point here. No, I didn't get paid giving me blood, Skehill. But lads just kind of say it to you anywhere. But anyway, we're playing Leitrim and ball came in. Myself and one of the Leitrim lads were running out to get the ball. I think it was Joe Murray, I think it was, running out to get the ball. I blocked it out over the sideline and he stood on my ankle, stood on my heel as it was going out. And it was it was an honest mistake, and I was kind of holding the calf going out towards the sideline. I didn't even look up. The lad holding the water over the sideline, he was like, "You all right?" And I was like, geez, yeah, no, it's grand. Oh, you'll be telling Skehill about that one later on. I was like, for fuck's sake. I was like, it's the middle of a match. And but I wouldn't mind. This is where I was going to say the second time I was going to curse there today. Second half, anyway, their movement was really good. Actually, just to give a mention to the Leitrim hurler, I spoke to him afterwards. Their movement was really good. It was one of those things. Do you know when you're watching a match? But I suppose in particular when you're actually marking a fella, you see someone coming in and you know by their movement before the ball's even thrown in, you're like, okay, this fella knows what he's about. That's the impression we got off the Leitrim boys, particularly the forward. So they were good now, in fairness, and we spoke about a few other things afterwards, but in the second half, there was a little break of play. I think someone got a knock, and they have a 19-year-old corner forward. Conor McLaughlin was corner forward, and we were chatting away for about a minute. He buttered me up. I should have seen it coming. Buttered me up to the last, and the ball comes back into play. He bowls away from me. I'm caught in no man's land. Lad pops him a ball. He sticks it over the bar, and he turns around to me and starts going like that, like fist up in the face. There, I was like, "You little fucking bollocks, yeah." And he went off and he skipped into the corner. I was going, "You fuck, Jesus Christ!" And so I was laughing anyway. But sure, we got a good old crack out of it. But it was actually the last point then on that. Came into the dressing room today. It was actually kind of a mix of our junior Bs and intermediates, and but lads were calling it like that it was our junior B team or whatever, because it was probably predominantly junior Bs. But a few of the younger lads on the panel were like asking, when was the last time I played junior B? And I was like, Jesus, I said, do you want to know my age or the year that I did it? And they were like, oh, sure, what year was it? And I said, 2004. And sure, we figured out the goalkeeper, I don't think, was born. The right cornerback, I was playing fullback. Right cornerback wasn't born. Left cornerback wasn't born. The right halfback may have been born. Left halfback wasn't born. I was like, Jesus, that's a fair stat now that that's when you know it's like, there's a few markers, but then it was like, okay, right. Yeah. Right, these lads were not born. And if anything, we're not even speaking at that stage. They were infants.
But we've lads that didn't know what extra vision was.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
I didn't know what extra vision was.
Like, I mean, they haven't lived. Look, nowadays they can just download everything, stream everything. Yeah. They don't know what it's like to go down and hand your fiver over and have to pay a fine after you rewind the tape back in time. Rewind it, yeah.
I'm name checking Donald Mannion. He didn't know what a DVD was.
What?
Yeah, like, I'm thinking that let's play the piss out of me, but then we got into extra vision. What's extra vision? Genuinely, pure bewilderment as to what extra vision was.
Jesus, I remember going in and like, there used to be a thing where on the television, Extravision would have the ad to tell you what they have in now this week. We have The World Is Not Enough, James Bond.
And then to be out, if you're gone, like, and you say, put my name on that, call me when it gets in.
Yeah. Call me when it gets in. Yeah. You're renting it for one night or 2 nights. One night to be about $3.99, 2 nights to be $5.99 to take a euro off you. Sure, was it even euro at the time? The euro was just it.
I remember the challenge as well, where there was at one point you could rent, I think, 3 for the weekend for like £9 or something like that, and you had to make sure you watched all 3. Yeah, and it's a great excuse to have to get up early on a Sunday morning because you weren't, not going to watch the third one.
Do you know what? I'm going to really throw a real haymaker into it here. I remember, I'm going to go back as far as 95, 96. There used to be a place in town. There's actually Chipper there now, great Chipper, and I remember you used to go in to rent like a Nintendo 64. Rent, there used to be a thing where you could rent one of them, 2 games, 2 controllers, and have it for a few days. And that was kind of a popular thing. Before PlayStation came in, everyone just didn't get a PlayStation or get a Nintendo 64. But Extravision, you could rent them, and you could do different things like that. So I remember going in, getting GoldenEye for the Nintendo 64, renting it for a few days, few controllers, and like living in your room. You were pale coming out after about 3 days.
He's bloodshot.
Bloodshot.
Haven't eaten in 3 days. Yeah.
Not eating nothing.
Literally one of the best games of all time. The only problem is if you do find your old N64 and have a look back, it's a lot slower than you remember it. But it was still great. I'd love to get a remastered version of it now. Just don't mess about it. Just,
I think you can get all that because you often see lads putting in like these things that you plug into your telly and you can get all these games on it. So if there's like it's so sophisticated now, but it'd be class. Yeah, that and like old Mario Kart or something like that. Unbelievable. Street Fighter.
I used to love my N64. There you go. Right.
Tekken.
Tekken was great. Tekken was on your PS1, which is...
did I just my guy with the sword? Hacking them.
I think I saw someone put up the other day, which will really make us feel old before we finish this main pod. It was something like the PlayStation 1, the original PlayStation, came out closer to 1970 than where we are now.
Shut up.
Sorry about that.
That's like the one, what is it? Cleopatra was born closer to the invention of the iPhone than she was the pyramids. That's like us now. We're Nintendo 64 or whatever was closer to 1970 than us.
Yeah, the N64 is 30 years old next year, I think. 96, 97, that type of time.
Oh, what a class game.
Scary times. Right, just want to play this before we finish out. Murph mentioned it already because there's nice music at the end of this. This is a documentary brought out with Sean O'Halpy, and here's a little taster of it.
I'm involved in a very bad car crash. In my naivety, I still think that I can get up and play the game on Sunday. Dr. Khan has to break the news to me You're lucky if you get back walking properly again after that. It can end up like this, and he says, it won't. If there's anyone to get back, it's you. Those words I clutch onto as hope and faith.
Yep, that is episode 1 of the new series of Inner Drive with Alliance. It's available on the Off the Ball YouTube if you want to watch it. I would try and recommend watching as opposed to podcasting this, just purely because it's so pretty. And the one thing I really liked in the middle of that, Porky Queeve is wonderful. We did the interview in the gym in the Piersic in Cork, and you see that wall ball area that he's in that has all the kind of seating area on it. It's incredible. They need to relay the indoor surface. He was saying it's not quite what it used to be when they first did it. But they've got like the Napiersic flag up on one side, the Cork flag up on the other side. And it's the most wonderful little indoor arena with kind of plexiglass around the side of it where you can bounce the ball everywhere as well. Not every club has that type of facility.
Unreal.
But that's Sean Og. We had a great time with Sean Og last year in Limerick. It was great to spend some time with him again. He's just a ball of energy.
Yeah.
It's one of the only interviews I've ever done. It was like 2.5, 3 hours long. We didn't stop. I said to him, like, if you need to stop, you need to take a minute, whatever, take a break.
Yeah.
Just like a machine gun.
Knowing Sean Og, you probably only asked him one question as well. And he just went, gone. Just sit back and just start drinking a cup of tea, and Sean Og's gone. In a good way.
That's the key. That's the key. 3 questions, I think, is all that was in there. And we managed to get the full 45-minute documentary out of it. So if you want to check that out, Off the Ball's videos have got it. And it's also available on Spotify for free in the Off the Ball GA feed, which is where you can pick up the Hurling Pod if you're not picking us up in the main pod there. And that is it for the main pod this week. Hurling League, done. In the pocket. James Skehill, thanking you.
Thanks, guys.
Paul Murphy, thanking you. See you next week.
Thanks very much.
Why do you always smile when I say thanks? Or why do you always?
I'm always wondering where you're going to go because you admitted it's like it's a weakness now at this stage. You keep on saying, "Oh, I don't know what to say."
You said that one very quiet then as well. I'm in now. I'm just very.
It make me half nervous, like you're expecting something.
You're just good entertainment. You're good entertainment.
I had a neighbour. He was God rest him. He was probably 94, 95, right? And he was born in the era, obviously, where there was just, probably I learned off him black or white.
Right.
Yeah. And like he'd say to everyone, right, when you say good luck, John Joe, he'd say, yeah, good luck and fuck you. And he'd say it to the priest, he'd say it to the nuns, he'd say it to the teachers. Why do that? Good luck and fuck you. So, if you want me to say that, Liz, I will.
But you've said it 3 times now, yeah.
Roll it again.
Well, that means you can. I had a colleague, by the way, who used to, if you called him middle of summer, he'd say Happy Christmas when he picked up the phone. We used to ring him for a report. This is like such old school stuff here when you think about it. And it was like ringing him on the phone. He used to run a pub, which was also the post office, which was also the shop in a rural town in County Westmeath. So totally old school. Everyone knew him. Ned Flynn, rest his soul, great guy, up around Pollard direction, Castown, Finnecool, Whitehall and Westmeath. And the great thing was, I always wondered what was going to happen the first Christmas, because I had to ring him all the time to get the reports on the Westmeath underage and stuff. And then you'd ring him at Christmas and he would say happy birthday or happy summer to you. So he knew how to vary it up. Always put you on the back foot because you never knew where it was going to go.
Yeah, right? That's the shot.
That's what you do, Skill. Have a different answer every time.
Well, I do see when people ask me how are you, I say tremendous. And it puts them off straight away. They're like, or I say fabulous. Right? And they're like, what's going on with him? Like straight away. The other any crack, no. How are you? Fabulous. Like, tell us why.
The Irish default is grand, and that's the only thing you can ever say in those circumstances. Right, thanking you, lads. We will be back with another podcast next week. We're going to be beginning our look towards the championship very, very soon. All right, see you next week.